Hi, this is my response to my fellow classmates for module, it's the 1D, E, and F discussion. Indonesia, I loved how you said outside connections and teachers pay teachers is one example. That's correct. So in special ed, we never have curriculum. We may have a few textbook resources, but we never have curriculum. So I get a grade level text and I modify it down. And that takes an extremely long amount of time considering, my seniors. And I'm modifying down from a 12th grade reading level to a 3rd grade reading level. That takes an extreme amount of time. So Teachers Pay Teachers is an excellent resource for finding something that's similar that's already modified. Art, when I taught art, and I don't know if I'm going to go back to art yet or not, again, there's no textbook. Everything that I teach to every standard, I have to create, find, or make. So it's, I feel like sometimes those are the forgotten things and we only focus on, the ELA, the math, and the science because those are tested subjects. But I think what people are missing is that PLC part because in art you have math, you have science, you have the poetry for the English. And I feel like the elective subjects are just as much important. There's history in art. There's so much there that I can be connecting to other things. But I have to make that connection myself. I have to find those resources myself. So I don't realize, don't discount your art and music teachers. They're working really hard to produce what they produce. Coherent instruction can be challenging to get to the higher understanding and get it to come across as student learning. This is so true. I don't know what my special ed students, what kind of learning environment they've had prior to me taking over the classroom because, again, the hire fell through at the beginning of the year, and the 2 previous teachers have left the district. We had a mass exodus. So I don't have anybody that I can go ask and say, hey, what did your instruction look like last year? So I'm finding that my students have huge gaps that shouldn't exist, even though they're in special education self-contained classes. The pre-assessment, teach the content, and then the post-assessment to evaluate, that is where it's at. Pre-assessment, my students are limited verbally, so it's very challenging to come up with valid pre-assessments to where it's not echolalia, that they're giving you back information or that they truly know the content. It may be pictures to see if they know and they can select the right picture. My students don't write well, and when they do write, it takes them a very long time to write. So if I'm having them answer a question, I may have them just highlight the paragraph that they found the answer in and then put, P1 for paragraph 1. That's where they found that answer. And then I go to their reading passage and see what they highlighted. It's, modifications at its finest. But your data is essential. We live, and being in special ed, data is king, and you live and you die by your data. And if you don't have good data, then you have nothing. And Christopher, the CTE, knowledge of resources, I feel you, man. I know I've always have to find my own stuff, and it's challenging, it's difficult, it's taxing. And when you're lesson planning and you're trying to find good resources, same thing in SPED. We don't get a whole lot. So a lot of the times I use articles from the news about, a stolen art piece or new findings in art. AI art is a really hot topic at this point in time. But for special ed, a lot of the even the general ed news, they're not connected to it in any way. So it's just associated topics. If there's a new disability law that I feel like my students need to know about, we'll talk about that and things. But I like to infuse as much literacy and vocabulary as possible. But again, going back to Indonesia, that's, there's one class period that I have 2 students who are nonverbal that are doing reading. I have 1 student who is limited verbal doing civics, and by limited verbal, echolalia. I have another student who is hard of hearing, has cochlear hearing aid implants, that's doing science. And then I have another student who is an English language learner doing literacy. So that's 5 students in a classroom with 4 different subjects and 4 different needs in one class period. This is what your special education teachers are mainly facing. We don't teach just one subject each class period. We have multiple subjects going on, multiple grade levels going on, multiple things happening each class period. And the rigor in trying to develop that serious, hardcore instruction to where it's coherent is very, very difficult and takes a lot of planning. And I can tell you, it's mentally exhausting. Art, it's a little bit different because you're taking an abstract concept and making it concrete. So I can give them the steps for a drawing, I can demonstrate the drawing, and then they'll produce the drawing themselves and then add the details and then build on their drawing from there. But accessible skills, it's not, SPED's not assessed, art's not assessed as far as testing goes. So it's kind of like we're shoved off to the side and nobody ever really comes to check on us. I did not have a single observation last year in art. So providing that rigor to make those advances, Christopher, it's I feel you. It's hard to take that and push it on and find where you can find that balance. And how do I measure, yes, I can do the complexity of a drawing, but every brain is different. Everyone has different fine motor control. So to expect a class of 26 to exactly reproduce the same drawing and it be like a carbon copy or photocopy of every single drawing is unrealistic. I'm looking for texture, or I'm looking for different things that each student can do in their drawing. But as far as special ed goes, you're looking, are they not performing echolalia when I am speaking to them? There's different things that you have to look for and measure. For Melissa, using resources, other groups or individuals, you mentioned bringing the emergency services departments over to talk to your kids. That is brilliant. I love it when people come talk to my kids and can relate to my kids. James Hayes in Pine Bluff blows glass. And so we set up a Zoom and he literally blew glass for my students via Zoom. We couldn't do a field trip and go there, but they could actually see, hey, this is Arkansas art being made. So it's my biannual sinus infection, sorry. But that helped them to understand that people are still making art. Art is a field. I've had graphic designers come in and talk to my students about the field of graphic design. Anything that we can do to interest them in a career. That is the point. That is, my first career was human resources, and it was all recruiting, staffing, all the things, payroll, benefit, work comp, unemployment, everything. But the whole point was finding a job and keeping a job and turning that into a career. So the Twitter style ticket, it's quick, it's fast, and it's limited space. But when you're working with those special ed students that have that slower processing speed and they need more time, I don't think that, I love it for my art kids, but not for my special ed kids. They need something different. Constantly assessing, just constantly checking in and doing things. Engaging students at the smart board. I started this last week with students, and they had never, I don't know if they'd ever even got to use the smartboard themselves before. So that was new to them, and they love it, and they enjoy it. Art, I've got 7 through 12. If you say, okay, look at your partner's drawing and tell me what you like about it, you're going to get, that's trash, that's, garbage, or this is fire, or, you ate that up, and whatever their new little lingo is going for now. So we take that and we turn it into, okay, how do you write a critique? How are you going to critique this art piece based on the rubric? So that's one thing that I can do in art. Okay, everybody get all your fun and jokes, but now you're going to have to write a serious critique. Stephen, the evidence, I love that you said evidence. Evidence, good planning, and structure in the instruction. Again, like in SPED, I've got 5 students with 4 different subjects going on in the classroom, and each one of those students has their own unique needs, and there's only one of me. Yes, I have paras, but a lot of times the paras are out with other students who need someone to go into the classroom with them. So a lot of times it's just me on the island of misfit toys by myself. We had an incident Tuesday. But where I had to send 2 paras after a student. But taking the training wheels off, that was, asking the right questions. With the SPED kids, you don't, especially if there's a speech language disconnection, why questions, why do you think this? They're really hard. And a lot of times if you put them on the spot and ask them a direct question, they freeze because no one's ever had that dialogue, question and answer with them before. They don't know how to respond. So special ed's not coloring. Everybody thinks we color and we babysit, and we don't. My nonverbal, low functioning students do hand over hand work. Is it effective? They fight against it. They're tactile defensive, but we're reinforcing what occupational therapy is doing. So in the long run, it helps. But, explaining, it's just altering the lessons and breaking down things to where you can take those training wheels off. So in social studies, we had to discuss the word slander. The kids didn't know what slander meant. So I was like, okay, gossip. Well, gossip's not in, it may have been in their parents' vocabulary, but it's not their vocabulary. So I was like, okay, somebody's giving you all the tea, but they don't have the receipts. That's gossip. And then the light bulb went off. And so I said, so if somebody is just spilling all the tea and they don't have the receipts, it's slander. I said, because you have to be able to prove that what you're saying is true, or it's slanderous. Then the light bulbs went off. And so I think explaining it to them in a way that they can understand is crucial. So the zone of proximal development, meeting them where they are. I cannot stress this enough in SPED. It's in art too. It's not everybody is an artist, and that's okay. And that's what I tell my students. It's okay. But with Lisa, the gradual release, that's what we're taught in Take Flight, Dyslexia Intervention. That gradual release, we're going to do it, we're going to model it, and then we're going to let you go with it. And we're going to you're going to handle it, and we're going to let you develop that. I think that is the most crucial piece in that metacognitive area of the brain where they're actually learning how to do it themselves, in that gradual release. It's flexible learning. That's the name of the game. For SPED, an exit ticket may be a thumbs up, thumbs down. It may be looking at a scale to see where they, and I do hot and cold for my SPED kids. Am I getting warmer or am I getting colder? Because those are things that they understand. Thank you.